This week, first up in the security news, QNAP takedown and cover-up. Google scans Android apps. Ghost in a wire, Sonic in the wall. PHP is secure. Fight me on it. Exploiting Zenbleed. Signal pours cold water on a 0 day. Iron keys, nitric acid, and recovering Bitcoin for someone who really refuses. They crack the code, and North Korea experiments with AI. Then we're going to air a pre-recorded segment with vulnerability researchers Thomas and Paul from Sonar discussing VS Code vulnerabilities. All that and more on this episode of Paul's Security Weekly. This is a Security Weekly production for security professionals by security professionals. Please visit securityweekly.com/subscribe to subscribe to all the shows on our network. Broadcasting live from G-Unit Studios in Rhode Island, it's the show where exploits run wild, packets aren't the only things getting sniffed, and the cocktails flow steady. It's Paul's Security Weekly.
And welcome to the show. But first, let me introduce you to a man who loves to put on underwear fresh out of the dryer and then look around the laundromat to see if he can figure out who it belongs to. Mr. Paul Asadorian.
Hey, welcome to Paul's Security Weekly, coming to you in super low definition, compliments of Darth Vader himself. This is episode number 804, being recorded on October 25th, 2023, right here in G-Unit Studios in Rhode Island. Mr. Larry Pesce is to my left.
Yeah, hey, I made it. I survived. It's good.
You did. You're a little lighter now.
Yeah, a little bit. My plans for last week to go to Auto ISAC and do a presentation got waylaid by an emergency appendectomy.
I know. How much does an average appendix weigh?
Not much.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but it was the 48 hours of not eating that really did it for me. Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you're back here with us, albeit a little lighter.
Yes.
A special returning guest. This is like I feel like a throwback. Like I feel like we're old school episode. And I apologize for everything that's going to happen on this segment in advance. Mr. David Johnson is here with us. David, welcome back.
It's good to be back.
To Security Weekly. You were like the behind-the-scenes kind of person for a while here, in front of the scenes, brain tank. You were here in Rhode Island for a while, and then you moved away.
Yeah, tried out the West Coast for a little while, came back, there were no clam cakes there.
So you had
to come back.
Although strangely enough, they had really good tartar sauce. I don't know how that even works.
Huh.
Fish tacos?
It's for the abalone, right?
I guess, but they don't know about clam cakes. So hence I'm here. Also, I'm walking distance from a place that has $9 a pound lobster. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, welcome back. It's nice to have you here in studio. Remotely, Mr. Josh Morpett is here with us. Josh, welcome.
Hey, back as usual. Happy to be here.
And the latest Paul Security Weekly co-host, Mr. Bill Swearingen, is here with us. Bill, welcome.
Hey, everybody. Nice to be here, Paul. Thanks.
Yeah, man. It's, Bill was like, I'm bored. Can I be a host on the show? I'm like, yeah, dude, you can be a host on the show. I mean, that's quite literally how it.
Yeah, and of course,
we'd love to have Bill.
The reaction of everybody in Slack when you said Bill's joining us, we're like, no, get that guy out of here. He's an asshole.
Of course. Nah. Okay. Whatever.
I mean, of course, we were joking because we love Bill. So
we were.
You were joking?
We were roasting Bill before he even got here.
Yeah.
What do you mean? I'm not an I am an admin.
Not anymore. You're not.
Anyway. Well, we're trying to get Bill added to all the things.
He's alive. Larry, it was nice seeing you. I'm glad that you're alive. It's been a while, but
not dead yet, man. Not dead yet. Soon.
Not yet.
Soon, maybe, but not yet. Not yet.
All righty. Is there anyone else? I didn't set up my cameras. Wait, is that everyone? Did I get all the co-hosts introduced? Is there someone? Okay, Lee will be here at some point. So. Let's see. They're celebrating the milestone of reaching over 1,000 members of our CISO community, the Cybersecurity Collaboration Forum, because that's them, and we're Security Weekly. But we're supporting them because it's a one-stop shop for executive collaboration comprised of CISOs across various industries. If you want to be part of the growing community of CISOs, join them as a member or technology partner. To learn more, visit securityweekly.com/cybersecurity collaboration. On my website, securitypodcaster.com, you can find cool stuff like links to the podcast I host, book recommendations, ridiculous PC build specs, and more. Links to all my socials, securitypodcaster.com.
Hey, related.
Yes.
Real quick. I posted, or I asked on the show about some projects that I need some help with, and I got some good responses, and I just need to get back to those folks about that. So thank you very much to those communities that are willing to help out. The other one, but if someone wants to help me out fixing up my WordPress website, I would love some time with that. It turns out I'm really busy and I suck at WordPress. So if anybody is willing to do that, and there's maybe some.
I feel your
some money
pain.
involved.
If you find somebody, I'm willing to pay, because I need a website built, just a simple one for my personal and for my small business. And
Exactly.
it's such a pain in the ass, and I suck at WordPress.
What is it? XSS? No, CSS. Yeah, XSS. CSS is my nemesis. So
Well, if you have CSS, you can have XSS.
maybe if you do it wrong.
If you do it
That's
wrong,
Yep.
all right,
actually
wrong.
true. Yeah.
Yep, it's like that old saying with hardware: every machine is a smoke machine if you use it wrong enough. So, yeah. All right, Paul.
So, where do we want to go first? Do we want to talk about cryptocurrency things?
I mean, it's not so much
Yes.
cryptocurrency as it is
Well, yeah, hardware hacking.
hardware
and
hacking and
nitric acid.
locked USB drives.
I can't wait to get to the nitric acid part. That sounds fun.
Yeah. So, well, Paul, you started us off. Tell us about nitric
so now
acid.
oh god. So, people store cryptocurrency on encrypted drives. Iron Key came out around the time like Larry and I were starting the podcast.
So Iron Key is about 10 years old at this point.
Is it? I thought it was older than that. I feel like it was early days of the podcast. You and I acquired an Iron Key that was like
Yep.
given to us by the company when they were first created, because they were like, we want
Yep.
you to use it.
I mean, I had some for work, and maybe that was some of
Yes.
the things that happened to that. Yeah, I did have some for work, and that was what we standardized on.
Military grade encryption.
Military grade, which means absolutely nothing. Yep.
But it's the FIPS tamper-proof standard, right?
Yep.
So
Well, actually, more than FIPS, because it's got the hardware. Technically, if you use it more, if you try to open it up, there's a pressure differential. It'll actually burn the chip that's holding the data. There's all kinds of things in an iron chip.
Iron Key, I mean, yeah. 2011.
Sorry.
No, 2011 was when they
Okay.
were some of the more common ones were available.
So someone stores their crypto 7,000 Bitcoin on one of these.
Yep, 7,000 Bitcoin wallet on 2011 era Iron Key, which if you guess the password too many times, it wipes the drive.
Mm-hmm.
And this particular individual, Stephen Thomas, owns one of these and is in this predicament and has used 8 out of the 10 password guesses.
But then there's also this company called, what is it called? Deciphered?
Unciphered.
Unciphered. That claims to have gotten around the protections of an Iron Key, is able to recover the data.
Yep.
Which cost them millions of dollars and almost a year worth of work, right?
Yep, and they bought literally every used 2011 era Iron Key off of eBay as soon as they were available. They needed to go through a fair amount of samples. Yep.
Well, because the nitric acid part comes in is once they open it up, you've got to melt what do you call the protective coating they put on chips so you can't tamper with them?
Potting.
Potting. Is that what it's called?
Potting material, potting material
Yeah.
or epoxy or something of the like, depending.
Yeah. And
Yep.
so, but you can't just melt that.
Nope.
Like, why can't you just melt it off with a hot air rework station?
I mean, you can, but it takes a really long time.
Really
it's
long
fairly
time.
resistant to it, and you also risk damage to the underlying actual components when you
Right.
do that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
And so, but their solution was to soak it in nitric acid, which apparently destroys some of the ICs or integrated controllers.
Integrated circuits.
Integrated circuits, rather.
It's pretty common to use nitric acid to decap a chip.
Yes.
Travis Goodspeed showed me, like, he was one of the first ones to show me, and he did some beautiful things with the RSA tokens and with various chips. He actually got one chip to where he was using microscopic photography to actually see the traces inside the IC. It was really beautiful stuff.
Well, yeah, they used like a CT machine
Yep.
to essentially X-ray the chips.
Yeah, I think they use the same process that you're describing there to do that, right? And Paul, we were kind of talking about this earlier. We know Eric. We've known him for a long time. He's been in the hardware hacker community for a long time. He was I think he was the founder of the hacker space in Chicago, if I remember, Pumping Station 1.
Oh yeah, okay. Now
Remember
it's all coming back to me now. Now I know why I know Eric. Yep. All right.
Eric, yeah, we've known him for a long time. What I just thought was really interesting about that is that at the end of the article, and I know you guys were going to get there, but the guy that owned the Bitcoin chose not to use their service.
Yep.
Right.
Says he's already under contract with 2 other companies and would be in bad faith for him to engage a third. But if one of those companies wants to engage with Unciphered services as a subcontractor, they are free to do so.
Yeah, but like, why would they do that? Well,
Because they get the company would get the bounty if they were able to recover it, but they're going to have to pay a part of that bounty to Unciphered.
I would imagine that a pretty large bounty, right? Like probably a lot of that.
Yep.
It makes me wonder if that guy even actually has Bitcoin on that USB, or if he was just after some of the, there's definitely been a sense of like, we all heard about the guy that bought a pizza with Bitcoin, right?
Yep.
We've all heard about the guy that threw away the hard drive and he's now going through the
landfill. Yep.
Landfill, right? It makes me wonder if he's not in the same boat, like, and he just wanted some press about that.
Hey, you never know.
Yeah, I don't know that I guess you could do it for press, but he doesn't strike me as someone who's just doing it for press right now. Like, I don't really see a lot of evidence of that. But
and then again, the blockchain is public, so conceivably you could search the blockchain because he has stated how many Bitcoin are there, and you could figure out and do the math and figure out what wallet has 707,002 Bitcoins in it, and potentially could corroborate some of that story. Don't necessarily know who it's owned by, but there's some potential for some corroboration there.
I would imagine the companies, before getting involved, would have tried to do something like that.
Yeah.
So that way they could gauge their risk and determine if the money was actually there.
But also, he prepaid some of these companies too. So it could be like, if you pay a bunch of money to two companies to go break this open for me, that you don't want to go to another company because then you just burned your cash with those other companies. It could be something like that. Although my opinion now after hearing all this stuff is irrelevant because I'm not in that person's shoes. But like, they should have entered it into agreement and been like, if I find someone better, I can go do that because technology advances and maybe there's someone better. But again, like,
I think that's where I'm not a contract lawyer, but I think that's where his argument is like, yeah, technology has evolved, but I have contracts with these 2 other people. Those 2 other people can go and contact Unciphered and contract their services.
Yeah. But I mean, at the same time, no matter what you paid those companies, you could probably just be like, yeah, well, I mean, maybe they lay claim to that, $225 million as part of the contract.
And I wouldn't be surprised that if the time those contracts were written, that the bounty was significantly smaller based on the value of those Bitcoins.
Right. Or more, depending.
Yep. Or more, depending. So.
Yeah. What's interesting, though, like I think we should talk about the attack vector, right? That Unciphered is using against an iron key. I find that just wildly entertaining. So about what was it? You guys probably you guys might know this, but maybe about a year ago, another friend of ours, Joe Grand.
Yes.
Yeah. Had posted a YouTube video about him attacking a different type of hardware wallet that did something real similar, right? So the claim to fame for IronKey was after 10 tries, it wipes itself, right? Yep. And so what Joe Grand, and I have no idea, even though Eric's a good friend of mine, he hasn't disclosed anything to me about this, but what I expect probably happened was that they figured out very similarly to what Joe did was you're able to do 9 tries and then glitch the device where it resets that register, right? So that, hey, I've done 9 tries, glitch that with a bit of voltage. Hey, it's 0,
yep.
And we get to try again, right? I imagine that's probably what
similar type of technique, yeah.
With
my guesses were voltage glitching, or they figured out a way to just remove the flash chip entirely from the device and read the contents.
Well, they said that they were able to do it non-destructively. So at the very tail of that article, it said that in their newest iteration, they were able to do it non-destructively, which is awesome.
I mean, yeah, I guess removing the flash chip from the devices, you could put it back, but on that device, I wouldn't want to be able to be tasked with doing that. I mean, technically you can put it back together, but I think what you're saying is non-destructively means they didn't take the thing completely apart.
Well, they destroyed some other pieces. They destroyed other examples to develop the 3D model for it, layer by layer, and that's where it really comes into play. Is they can use that 3D model to then not destroy the thing that they're trying to crack.
Right.
Which
I mean,
is
they
smart.
have to pull if they're saying it's non-destructive, they have to pull it out of the case. But if they do that in a pressurized environment, I don't think that the hardware dead man switch that's built into the iron key would activate if they can do it in a pressurized
I
environment.
don't think the iron key has the pressure switch.
I'm fairly sure it does. Maybe not that model.
Maybe because I remember. Because when I had one, and was long left the employee of that company, and couldn't remember the password, nor did I have the utilities to try to decrypt it. And quite honestly, there was nothing good that I needed to decrypt on it, anyways. I took it to the workshop and put it on the anvil and smashed the shit out of it. And well, I don't know.
Well, that's a scientific test that you did there, sir.
I did.
But
Well, I just destroy it because then I could throw it away. Then no one's getting the data, right?
valid. But the point is that if they did it in a pressure, assuming that it's the one where there's a pressure system inside, if they did it in a pressurized or a vacuum environment, they could do that without destroying the chip. Then you've got access because the case, as soon as you get the case off, you've got access to the flash chips. They could have done it by effectively sort of JTagging, hypodermic needling the chip that allows you to guess, but without allowing the voltage to hit the chip, the chip with the memory, the chip with the data, so that even if they got it wrong, it couldn't actually fry the data.
Lots of great theories. It'd be amazing to figure out exactly how they did it, right?
Yeah,
I'm sure
I got it right.
At some point we'll get some more insight on that, right? So I bet that Uncipher does, at some point they're going to put a blog post out or something, and not give away the details necessarily, but we'll get some more information about that. I think it's great hardware hacking. I think what an interesting case, and quite honestly, like, it just shows you it still remains. It's always been that trope, but it still remains if physical access is complete access, right?
Yeah.
Like if you
totally agree. Yeah, because when we were talking about BitLocker, I don't know how much on air or off air. We were talking a lot about it off air, but I saw a story, and it was a tweet someone sent me that when we were talking about on the hardware episode we did a couple weeks ago, the PC Byte.
Yeah.
So they used a PC Byte to sniff the keys for BitLocker.
Yep. Between the external TPM and the CPU.
Yeah, but the protocol was missing something when he decoded it, so he wrote the clock. And so he wrote his own clock in what's the software that you use for PC Byte for protocol deconstruction. Like a Celia Logic? Is that like the program?
Yep.
But what is the software? There's an open source version of that. What's it called?
PulseView.
Yeah, PulseView. I don't know if it was something like that or something similar, but it wrote a plugin that implements the clock that allows you to sniff the bus, that allows you to get the BitLocker keys using the PC Byte, which are just basically needles that allow you to sniff communications between chips, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So, cool hardware hacking stuff, for sure. But, of course, I feel like when we talk about cryptocurrency like this, like, shit gets weird.
Yeah.
Like, there's always, like, someone going through a landfill, or we don't know, like, who's Satoshi. Like, there's always some crazy, weirdness with cryptocurrency, I feel like.
Totally. Like to Bill's point, like, does he actually have it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Did somebody steal it in the meantime? Was it, like there's all sorts of possibilities. He may think it's on the USB drive. It may not be.
Yeah, just ask Tyler.
Sorry. Yeah, we should ask Tyler.
I think Tyler's not on the show specifically this week because he knew we were going to talk about
bust
this.
his butt. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Where do you want to go next?
It's a great question. I got to refresh some show notes here.
You want to talk about PHP?
Not really, but sure.
Okay.
I'm kidding. Yes, no, because you made some wild claims at the introduction of the show. Like, those people that poo-poo PHP saying it's insecure, I don't believe them anymore. Fight me, I'm wrong.
All right, so here's
and we have poo-pooed the shit out of PHP for nearly 2 decades.
lots of poo-pooing PHP.
Tell me I'm wrong.
So here's the article. Title is "People Who Say PHP is Insecure Are Uninformed." I was like, all right, like right in the title, you're just poking me right in the eye. Like, ow, okay, let me regain my senses, and now I'm going to read your article. And then I read the article, and I was like, some pretty valid points. I think it'd be interesting to have a counterpoint article to this, and maybe we'll discuss that here. But let me see if I can distill the highlights. People's perception of PHP is outdated by 15 plus years, right? So 15 plus years ago, PHP had like heinous insecurity in the configuration. Like, I can't even recall from the top of my head what were some of the things in the config file that they existed, and it was basically like you might as well just give away your credentials to the world.
Yep.
Because it was that vulnerable, and I can't even remember what those are now because it's been so long. They'll probably come to me at some point after the show. But what the author is saying is that's the perception that people have of PHP today are those 15 plus year old vulnerabilities. So then he says you don't notice it's PHP to see a PHP extension, which is, I don't know, that really wasn't an argument. So we'll skip over that part. Examples of vulnerable code are often written in PHP, right? Like the classic $_get, name kind of stuff for the cross-site scripting demo, as he puts in his example. So anytime you see the same language being used to exemplify vulnerabilities, you're like, oh, PHP is insecure. People compare raw PHP with full web frameworks. It's interesting. PHP is not like a full web framework. So like versus JavaScript, for example, or Next.js. It's not like a full web framework. And he talks about one called Laravel, which makes PHP like a full web framework. PHP
sounds terrifying, but maybe
this was kind of interesting. So like PHP is easy for beginners, but I think that it means that people that don't know how to code securely can easily stand something up in PHP and create vulnerable applications. So it's not PHP's fault. It's actually a positive for PHP that it's easy to code in for beginners, right? And hopefully they don't have to learn JavaScript in the process, because JavaScript is awful. And then, people don't know about Laravel and blah, blah, blah. Also, there's, people are ignorant and are uninformed is what he says in the end. Because PHP, as he says in Article 2, has stood the test of time. Like a lot of languages and frameworks have come and gone, but PHP is here to stay. And folks like WordPress, right, are written in PHP. And Facebook has like a crap ton of PHP. Like the whole platform is written in PHP. Wow. So there's that.
I mean, to his point, I didn't know about Laravel.
I didn't either. Yeah. So, right. Because we're like security people, not developers.
Right. Right. And there's a distinct difference between having to know everything about a particular language or platform and being able to break it regardless of what it is or find vulnerabilities in it versus being able to code securely. You have to be a lot more skilled.
Big difference.
Right.
Sledgehammer versus being able to build a wall well.
So Gauss on Discord says that Laravel is used everywhere, like everywhere.
I'm not surprised. I am not surprised.
So maybe they have a point. There's potentially a lot of built-up bias. I mean, those of us who've been in this space for over a decade, definitely we have our ways. We sometimes get set. We have to break out of it.
Totally.
So there's probably a lot of build-up perspective on PHP that is potentially causing that significant bias. So I guess the purpose of the article is mostly to provide some introspection, make us think a minute about this.
Sure. Some of my counterpoints are, if you've got an experienced developer that has had training in secure coding, they're going to code more securely in the language that they're comfortable in, or whatever language it is, right? Also, a programmer that doesn't understand security is going to write insecure code no matter what language it is, especially PHP. The examples that I have are like type juggling vulnerabilities in PHP are awful. Like, to keep that shit straight, you have to be on the top of your game as a programmer, otherwise you're gonna screw it up. And I feel like there's other things in PHP that are easy to make mistakes with that lead to a lot of these insecurities. Does that mean PHP inherently is insecure? No, maybe it means you could say C is insecure, but it's, it just lacks memory safety. Like, learn to not code in heinous memory corruption vulnerabilities then, right? I feel like PHP is kind of in that same thing.
Well, it's just like any other security thing that you put in place. If it's difficult to use in a way that is continually secure, people will find a way around it, or they'll make something work for them that is more convenient. It's possible that this is a similar case.
Right. Bill, what was go ahead, Bill.
I was going to say, I completely agree with that last statement, right? So that's exactly how I feel too, right? Is it is any programming language, can you consider any programming language secure, right? Like, no, because the point that was just made, if it's hard to do these things, people are going to find a way around it, and that's what causes that insecurity. When and quite honestly, like, I mean, just throwing it out to the group, if you come across admin.php is your first thought, well, this thing's insecure because it ends with PHP. I don't know. Maybe I'm past that, right? Like, I feel like secure coding practices have gone that way. That maybe I'm not the right target market for this article. But
Bill, what we're not past is using our hacking skills to annoy people. Dave's sitting there laughing because he's clicking through the Bluetooth low energy spam that I'm sending him from my flipper.
For sure. I should have brought mine.
The thought of it, Bill, is you held up a clear flipper.
Oh.
Hold that up again, Bill. Everyone take out your flipper. I want to see your flipper.
Got it. And what's cool is in the app, it even knows it's a clear flipper.
What? Really? Is that the stock firmware?
Yeah, no. So they did a limited release.
They did.
About a month ago of the clear ones, and and what's cool is in the app on my iPhone it shows a clear flipper.
Oh, I gotcha.
That's awesome.
In the app, I gotcha.
Yeah.
What? Go ahead.
Wait. So you go onto a website and it's admin.php, and I'm just like, well, I know the things to test, but then, like, my point was, like, so if I go to admin.aspx, right, then I'm like, oh shit, oh darn it, well, this one's probably vulnerable, right? Like, it is kind of funny, like, the perceptions of PHP versus other programming languages, I guess.
For sure.
Can I say shit on this show or not?
Can you say what?
Shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
right.
Absolutely.
I mean,
seriously?
We're not governed by the FCC, because fuck that shit.
I did want to talk about the flipper though. What firmware do you run, Bill?
So interestingly enough, this is flipper number 2. This is the second one I had. Whoever stole it from my first one from me in New Orleans, I'm coming for you. And I will find you.
I was going to say, you've only got 2? Fucking amateur.
Right, yeah. No, now I only have 1, right?
Oh, damn it.
But you got the clear one, so that means, you one up us all.
But right now I'm running Extreme. I literally got it this week, and mainly I just go after the same thing, Paul, when you made the joke about the BLE spam.
Yeah.
Same, right?
Right.
Same. I just annoy anybody in my general area, like the end.
Yeah, so I got the Rogue Master firmware that comes with the universal BLE spam now that works on Android, Windows, and iOS, and it is just so much fun. I just be in a restaurant and I just have to. I can't help myself.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to be at Disney next week, and you gave me a great idea that I need to go update that to do that.
Yes.
The other one, we were talking about this before the show too, is that the default, the factory, as it were, supported firmware actually totally revamped their NFC and RFID portion. So it's allegedly way better now.
The RFID one just makes you want to get a Proxmark. I mean, it's really that's really kind of what it comes down to.
The irony, Paul, I don't know what your flipper may or may not be doing, but the TV number 6 that shows program to me is off again.
Oh, no, I wasn't messing with any IR stuff. I have some really cool add-ons for that, though, from the guy in New Jersey, Rabbit Labs.
Yep.
Bill, I don't know if or Josh or anyone, if you start getting into add-ons for it, check out Rabbit Labs on Tindy. Now our audience heard that now, so please don't flood him with like 1 million orders, because maybe he wants that, but I'll give him a free plug on the show because he's an awesome person and does great work and stands by his products. It makes probably some of the highest quality, in my opinion, the highest quality and coolest stuff. And his infrared add-ons are amazing. I mean, he's got one with, are they called an infrared? Would you call them it's not a diode. It's not.
Yep, it's a diode.
It's a diode.
It's a diode.
He's got ones with like banks of diodes on it.
They're probably focused long range and wide angle.
Correct.
Yep.
It makes it you can be a little more discreet about it when you've got those the add-ons with those diodes on it, because you don't have to be as like directional. You don't have to be restaurant pointed at the TV, right? You can kind of be more discreet.
So
yep, plug those in with some DuPont cables, and you can make them a little bit. You can put that on the table,
right?
and I mean, not that I'd ever do anything like that.
That's a great idea, though. I didn't even consider that. DuPont cables are cheap. I could order a kit just for that.
Yep.
So we can check back in a little while. So their current total number of orders for Rabbit Labs is 3,401 as of January 30th this year. So if we come back in a month and it's significantly higher, I think we can attribute that to this show.
I mean, I hope so, but like my fear is one of my other flippers, my other flipper, I should say, that has the Wi-Fi dev board on it, has, Bill was watching the webinar I did, has this really cool black case in an orange writing. It says "Hack the Planet," and the person who was selling those would sit, like, you could customize your slogan and he'd 3D print it for you and ship it to you. And I got one. I was like, this is so cool. So I put it all on my social media accounts, and they were like, where'd you get that? I'm like, I got this here. Like, this is amazing. And then that option, that SKU disappeared, and he just publishes the step file. He's like, you go print it yourself now.
Really?
Yeah.
Nice.
Oh, I need to.
I don't know if he always had both or not, but there is a step file for that one, Larry.
Either way, yeah. New 3D printer, which
did you get the what is the one? So I actually mentioned you in the webcast. I'm like, I didn't talk about, so I did a webcast this week. You can find it on eclipsium.com on our YouTube. Actually, the secret hacking thing is, if you don't register for our webcast, we put them out on YouTube for free. So I did an entire hour-long webcast on building your hardware hacking lab. But I'm like, at the end, I was kind of like, the things I didn't talk about I didn't talk about 3D printers.
Yep.
But I'm like, Larry's done a lot of research, and so now we get to hear from Larry, because you bought one. What is the company called?
Bamboo, B-A-M-B-U, Bamboo X1 carbon with the single 4-spool AMS.
Was it running like $1,100?
But with the AMS, it was about $1,200-1,300.
Yeah.
Okay.
And quite honestly, this is my third 3D printer, and this is the first 3D printer that I've actually gotten successful prints out of.
So you unboxed it, like the setup was pretty easy?
I unboxed it.
You didn't have to put it together.
Nope, I did. I did have to put a few minor things together, like they put some bolts in to secure it during shipping, and I had to undo a couple of those. You had to add one piece to the back to support like the mixer for the AMS, which is the automatic multi-spool.
Yep.
So I can have 4 colors at a time.
Nice.
And yeah, it was pretty much turn it on and you boop, 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 and you walk through it. And
calibrates itself.
Calibrates itself, and with their slicer and their printing software, you can have it run a self calibration every print.
Okay.
And I do that. It takes 5 minutes.
Right.
And when you're talking about an 18-hour long print, 5 minutes is nothing to help ensure that your bed is level and all that stuff. And
What'd you come from before? What were you using before that?
So I had an original. The first one was an original MakerBot dual extruder clone from like China or whatever. And I think I got maybe 1 or 2 good prints out of it, and then it just went to shit. It was arguably, my filament was all sorts of wet, and like, yeah, and it was infancy in the days of infancy. It was more than a decade ago, when like a dual extruder thing was, oh my God, this is amazing.
Yeah.
Recently, I went to a Prusa MK2 and put that together. It wasn't too bad to put it together. I did it in an afternoon, and I never got a good, successful print out of that. Turns out the bed from Prusa was shaped like a bowl, and I could never get it to level, period. I mean, I spent 30 hours trying to get a good bed level out of it, and I never could. And even ordered replacement beds and installed them. And then I was so frustrated with it to go back to, like, I'm going to have to spend another 30 hours over the next couple of weeks trying to level this new bed. Mm-hmm. And then the Bamboo X1 Carbon came out, and I'm like, I can throw money at this problem.
Right?
And I have gone through more goddamn filament than I know what to do with.
That's great.
And I've printed, Star Wars props, and I even printed some stuff that was intended for the resin deposition printer on the PLA spool, and it came out fantastic. Specifically, the Monty Python Black Knight that stands there, holds its swords. You shall not pass. It's only a flesh wound. And they make a version that you can put magnets in, so all the limbs come off. And that was supposed to be for a resin deposition printer. And the quality that I got out of the Bamboo for the wrong technology was amazing.
So it only gets better.
I think in California, you're starting to have to register 3D printers, right? So maybe because of printing guns or suppressors or whatever. But I hear that I don't really know the background or I don't really know any details, but I did hear that it's becoming something that you actually have to register. That
I'm gonna say something here. I apologize, but it is so much fucking easier to go to Home Depot. I shouldn't say it that way. You can build a firearm in the aisle of Home Depot with some of the parts they have there. It takes almost nothing. You have to drill one hole. It's not that big a friggin' deal.
What's that, Bill?
What's that?
What parts specifically? Let's do it.
I'm looking forward to
remember the IDs. I don't remember the IDs of the iron pipes, but I'm sure you can figure it out.
Yep.
I'm looking forward to your next YouTube video that will live for all of 1 minute and 37 seconds on YouTube on how to build a gun from Home Depot.
They actually exist. Look up the Royal Nonesuch.
It's crazy.
That's crazy.
So
anyway, back to what were we talking about? 3D printing.
Yeah.
So Bamboo and Dave, you had something.
Yeah. So I've had mine since May.
The Bamboo?
Same one. Yep.
Yeah.
X1 Carbon. It only gets better.
Oh God.
It's beautiful now, and it will continue to wow you. At least 5 months.
You know what's great though is I can send either or both of you my step files now and ask you to print them.
Absolutely. Every moment.
Just let me know when I reach a point where I have to send you guys a bottle of bourbon.
Dude. Well, yeah, absolutely, because the filament gets a little crazy, especially if you buy the good stuff that works.
Right.
But every second that printer is idle, it's wasting money.
Right.
Yeah.
So send me stuff and I'll print it.
So please send me a 3D model of your head, so I can, we're just going to get creative with that. We can do so much.
Oh,
which
Larry, let's do the Boris butt plug, but with Paul's head.
Done. Well, somebody at DEF CON handed me a penisaur.
Yeah, penisaurs are awesome, but time out. You can't.
Heather.
It's not rated for that, Josh. It's not safe or sanitary to print sex toys without the right material.
Right. Well, I mean, it's a novelty item.
Yeah,
I mean, you wouldn't actually insert that anywhere.
Our friend Kevin made some post, and he was printing something that kind of looked like a sex toy, and everyone was like, "Whoa, what are you doing?" He was like, "No. Like, if you're gonna do that, like, there's a lot of considerations." And I was like, "Kevin, it's almost like you've researched that before." Anyway, I don't want to know.
Maybe.
So if you're interested,
things I don't want to know are things that go in your butt. Don't want to know. Like, I'm good.
So if you're interested in trying to get into 3D printing and you're thinking about that price tag and saying that's a bit too high for me, Bamboo just came out with a much smaller version of it. It's a slightly different design, but it's $300, and the AMS is only, I think it's $250 more, somewhere around there. But if you buy the bundle, it's $5 or roundabout. And
for printing small things, I had a penis with wings on my badge at DEF CON one year that I think was Bill. Do you remember that?
Dude, next.
I like you use the word small and penis in the same sentence.
Not uncommon for me, Bill. What are you talking about? You've known me for a long time.
I'm just waiting for the day that Paul goes out to his Tesla in the parking lot when he leaves, and he's found that all of the caps for his tires for the fill valves have been replaced by little penises.
Oh my God, this is gonna be a glorious day. What are you talking about? This is freaking awesome.
Because I have the STL files to print them.
I love it.
You can do that with keyboard caps too. I've seen a few designs. There's the sky's the limit. Really.
Yeah, and that
what I was saying too, you know what I want? I want like cases for all my Raspberry Pis. Like I want cool cases.
They make some beautiful cases for flippers. All the accessories built in. They're really nicely done. I made a functional case for my my soldering iron, which is it's a pine sill. If you haven't seen that, it's a USB-C based. It's a really cool piece of technology. I grew up using a wood burning iron to do my first soldering, which did not come out well. But with the pine sill, they have a case that somebody designed where you can actually use the case after you open it up and kind of reconfigure it a little bit as a full soldering station. Nice. So it has a built-in stand, so it can hold hot things, as well as your cable is in there.
And if you melt it, you just print a new one.
Right.
That's true. If you ruin it, you can just actually the insert pops out, so you just would have to reproduce the insert really quickly.
Yep. I mean, we're going to Disney and we're going to be there for Halloween, and we're dressing up in our costumes, simple stuff. And this year, I am doing like a little cosplay of one of the guys from Hercules, Disney film. And when Hercules and the satyr are in the marketplace, all of a sudden this guy jumps out and whips open this cape and flashes them, and they're like, whoa, 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 and he's like, hey buddy, you want to buy a sundial? So like, you know, the guy in New York City has got the watches in the inside of the coat, but it's Greek, so it's sundials. Yeah, so I'm cosplaying as that, and I've got a little vest, and I 3D printed sundials to go on the inside of the vest.
It's amazing.
Yep.
I don't know how we got so deep down the rabbit hole on 3D printers.
I don't know. But
I'm glad we did.
Something about cases for your flipper and...
Yes.
Yeah.
And PHP. I don't know.
Yeah. We could
Larry, let's do one of your stories.
We could use PHP to generate STLs for never mind.
With AI.
What, from Laravel to 3D printing? This is funny.
So back to Laravel. There was a post in Discord from someone that's posted on a page from infostride.com about the top 12 sites built with Laravel, and I'll run through them real quick. Invoice Ninja, Allison, Barchart, MyRank, AlphaCoders.com, Laracasts, Check People, World Walking, October CMS, Asgard CMS, Cache, and Laravel.io. I didn't recognize a single one of them, but number 12, Laravel.io, made sense.
I was going to be disappointed if that wasn't there.
Totally. All right, Paul, so you said...
One of your stories, Larry.
One of mine.
Let's do number one. I like number one. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. So my story number one, not to get political, but from Politico, ironically, we don't want to get political from a site named Politico.
What story number are we working with here?
Israel's using widespread GPS tampering to deter Hezbollah's missiles.
Interesting.
Yeah. And this was one of the things that we had seen, and actually... I worked on a project with Mike Poor and Faith Alderson for a project to do remote and aggregated GPS spoofing detection, so that the average consumer could put a Raspberry Pi with GPS sent puck and could report centrally. We never got the central portion integrated, but you could determine locally whether GPS was being spoofed at your location. And a bunch of the research that we did around that was largely around Russia doing a lot of GPS spoofing for both military operations in Ukraine, and as well as around a bunch of high value targets such as the Kremlin and Putin's residence and some of his other residences and so forth, and to mask some of their military operations just generally. And now apparently it's
so they were spoofing, was what you're talking about.
So they're effectively spoofing GPS, and or jamming GPS, and or creating false signatures for GPS, and or introducing some sort of shift so that things don't appear where they seem to be. And spoofing GPS would allow you to send effectively false signals to devices to make things appear where they're not, or not appear where they are.
So I've only done testing to basically confirm accuracy on GPS technologies.
Yes.
I would assume it's relatively easy, and based on my test results, which of the 10 different GPS modules we used, only one of them was anywhere near accurate. This is 15 years ago.
What is it behind Dave? Why does it look like Dave's reporting from like the basement where there's a TV of Bill behind him?
There is, because there is a TV
Bill
of Bill
is
behind
watching.
him.
There is a TV, but it looks like he's in the
Whenever we cut to Dave,
basement.
it's my favorite thing in the world because I know that I'm on the TV
Can
and
you
I'm
do
gonna
hand puppets?
like pretty soon I'm gonna be doing like giving him ears.
Please do.
I love it.
Thanks.
But I would imagine GPS spoofing is relatively easy.
Yes. So having come from a little bit of RF and teaching some RF stuff, it is entirely possible to do GPS spoofing at very short range with a USB 3 to VGA converter with some special software. And it's about $10 off of Amazon.
Wait, what does a USB 3 to VGA converter have to do with GPS?
Because that USB 3 to VGA converter, the chipset, and it's something SS2000. Because that chipset is sending pulses to a VGA monitor that are effectively on off. You can change the cadence of those on off to be outside of that VGA range to generate electromagnetic energy, which is RF radiation, and
through the USB interface, or
you are using USB interface to control a custom driver for the chipset to drive a VGA monitor.
So it's like a USB driver for that. The interfaces with the chipset that's supposed to output VGA, but turns out
you're now telling the chipset, hey, instead of using 60 hertz, you want to make this thing go way faster so that it effectively is doing low power RF energy that is on the same frequency as GPS. And by the way, send this GPS signal instead of the real one. So,
but I mean, you're talking about something that is good for like 10 inches.
Right.
That's not. It's not very long range.
Correct.
This is something. Now, mind you, there's a in civilian GPSs. There's actually a factor. It's not supposed to go faster than like I forget how many hundreds of miles an hour.
175, something like that.
Yeah. Well, no, I think it can go like they set it so the F1 cars could use it or something. So it's like like 300 or 400 miles an hour or whatever. But some vaguely ridiculous speed, it stops working so that you can't use it in a home-built cruise missile. There was a guy in New Zealand who was building a homemade cruise missile using a pulse jet engine, and before they came in and went, dude, no, and took everything, he was talking about how to get around that GPS problem. But I mean, that's
so
fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely, you could ramp something like that up. I mean, the technology is known.
It was detected.
Go ahead, Bill.
I don't know what just happened there, but what I found interesting about this was that it was detected with APRS data, right? So that some people just watching like flighttracker.com noticed that hey, something's not going right in the Gaza Strip with airplanes moving around. That was the part of all of this. I mean, you just kind of assume in times of war or warfare that there's probably some GPS issues that are occurring, and there's a lot of downsides to that, which we can get into. But what I found interesting is that researchers determined this off of flight tracker data.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And so, publicly available information, whether it be ships with AIS or ADSB for flights and ACARs and that type of stuff. Yeah, that's really cool. And having done some of this testing, yeah, it's relatively easy if you've got a hacker F, again, with short distance. But if we know the technology and we've got a low power radio, there's no reason that someone with a significantly higher power radio over a longer distance can do this, because the signals that are coming from those GPS satellites in space are, in fact, very weak. And it doesn't take a lot of power to override the legitimate signal to do that. For some of the testing that I've done, many of the ways that some of these, quote, military grade systems deal with GPS spoofing is to use multiple sources, meaning you're going to use United States based GPS, Baidu, and GLONASS all at the same time. But there's also a business logic that you need to consider, that if you get a lock on with one, how long does it take before you validate with others? And do you validate with others? And then how often do you validate, and how often do you make that change? Meaning, if the GPS spoofing happens for a long time and you consider that ground truth, even after comparing it and it's wrong, does it become ground truth? And that's where my testing was, and that's where my testing failed. I cannot talk about the company or the industry, but let's just say I put things in places they shouldn't be. That sounds back to that 3D printer conversation. Like, I took fixed assets that should be fixed and placed them in places where they will never occur.
That sounds like you just admitted to a crime. Like, hey, someone arrest Larry.
In a Faraday cage. In a Faraday cage.
Not violating FCC.
Yep. With low power, and I was going to say with permission against the specific devices.
Have you ever seen any sort of directionality measure? So theoretically, you could create an array that is designed to point up where satellites would be. Have you ever seen anything like that?
I have not, but then again, the greater portion of this type of stuff is all sponsored by nation state military, and it's a pretty big secret. So
if it worked, it seems like that would be a relatively easy thing, or it could be a terrible idea.
Why not?
Wait, say it again?
Just leveraging directional antenna technology to point up rather than getting a signal from the ground. You could potentially isolate that a bit in order to reduce shenanigans.
Yep. So arguably, all the GPS spoofing is going to be ground-based and is going to traverse horizontally, as opposed to receiving that signal from a satellite, which is going to be coming at you largely vertically.
It wouldn't be perfect at all, but you could reduce some of your, issues.
Yep. Yeah, you could, but depending on the capabilities of your radio, which I think most GPS receivers aren't there, at least on the consumer side, you could consider angle of attack and angle of incidence and those types of things.
Amplitude, signal strength. You said that they were relatively weak. If the signal strength is too high, tune it out.
Definitely. Yep, absolutely.
But also, you don't necessarily need the USB dongle with the VGA. You could also use a hack RF.
Yep,
it's perfectly capable of doing those frequencies for GPS.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
You could also make something custom designed, probably relatively easily.
Yep. And we actually did that on the show, maybe 3 years ago. We actually did a demo of GPS spoofing with a hack RF against a device here on the show.
Yeah, I remember that now. Because you didn't have the porta pack, you have the regular.
Yep.
You have the regular.
Well, I mean, I do have a porta pack, but all I needed was some software and the hack RF to be able to do that.
Nice.
Yeah. And we told my iPhone that we were somewhere completely where we weren't.
Right.
Free sport betting. Right? If we can control GPS, we can bet on sports anywhere. Heck yeah.
I mean, that was Bill, you're not far off, because some of the reason why folks wanted to do GPS spoofing was so that they could win at Pokemon Go.
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
They did that at DEF CON. I remember that.
Yep.
They had a box you could put your phone in, and it would put you in various places around the world, and you could collect the Pokemon that were at those places. I remember that now. Yeah.
But you could just spoof that on your phone. There was a secondary app that you could use in Android. And you could just point to where you wanted to be on the map. I didn't play Pokemon Go. I played the other game that it was derived from that I can't remember
Ingress.
the name. Ingress.
I mean, I may still play.
It was a really fun game. I got in my steps every time I played that game.
Yep. But yeah, absolutely. On Android, you could install a third-party app that would spoof GPS locally by the data on the phone itself. It wasn't actually doing any RF stuff. Yeah. And then Ingress and Pokemon Go started being able to determine that those apps were in use and would fail to start. So you had to do it RF-wise. Ask me how I know this.
Speaking of Android, though, so Android will now scan side-loaded apps for malware at install time.
This is
interesting. Which I think is interesting that Google's had this capability to detect malware inside of apps. But my question is, why hasn't Google applied this more globally?
You mean like at the Play Store?
Yeah, well they do. So, but like if you submit an app to the Play Store and you want it to be Google Play Protect, like badge on it, they will scan it, and if you pass, you get the badge. And so when you go to the Play Store, it's a Google Play protected app or whatever. So that's like one indication for the end user that it's been scanned and hopefully continues to be scanned. So Google's done some research on this, and it used to publish, I guess, a lot of this information. So in 2018, its statistics on malware installation were, back then, Google found that 0.04% of all downloads from the Google Play Store were PHAs, or potentially harmful apps, while sources outside of Google Play had 0.92. So it means you're 20 times more likely to install malware outside of the Play Store.
Totally.
But what I don't understand is, like, when I did the research on Android TVs, it would come with Android, and you'd use the Google Play Store to install apps, but they were apps that were pre-installed. And in every single device I tested, I at least found some adware crap on there. And I'm not the world's best like Android app or Android reverse engineer. But I found adware on them, and then I found one that actually came pre-installed with malware. It was the one that everyone was talking about. And by the time I had analyzed it, the malware C2 domain, the one that this was calling out to, had been not taken, but like the domain didn't resolve to anything. So they had taken it out of DNS so that it didn't resolve. So the stage 0 came pre-built into the device, but the next stage never happened. Right. So I wasn't able to like fully match the analysis that other people had done because my device wasn't fully infected.
Right.
So, to my knowledge, to this day, if someone wants a project, the stage 0 no one's ever figured out, or at least published, how that got there and what it's doing. They don't understand how it's baked into these Android TVs. So if someone wants to like go read my article from Eclipsium, I give you everything you need to do to go start looking at and figuring out where that happens. I give you all links to the resources as well. Maybe not some of the tools, but if you're willing to take that on, you probably know the tools. The tools. I can't remember. What's the Android app reverse engineering tool? Android I always forget what it is.
Do you have a theory as to when that's being put in place?
I have theories. Oh, believe me, I have theories. I think that
theories are free. He's got lots of them.
In
Manchurian microchip.
In certain cases, there is the supplier.
Frida?
No, it's at JDBX,
JetX.
JetX, JEDX? JADX, yes, JADX, that's the one. It comes with one of them is a graphical it's got a GUI, which is awesome for you give it like an APK or a classes.dex and it, GUI. Yeah. Who is it? GUI. It's just a command line. GUI. But my theory with that is you've got a supplier that is putting to market Android TV devices. I think that there's like backroom handshake deals where the app developer's like, hey, include my app on your device. I'm going to do ad clicking, right? Mm-hmm. And we're going to make money on that. And if you include it on every device, I'm going to give you 20%.
I'll show a portion of revenue because you're likely building these devices at near cost or at a loss.
Correct.
So every penny that you can eke out of one of these devices in the field is towards your profit margin.
That's where I think the ad stuff
are missing
comes
it. You guys are missing something. Like seriously, if I was going to build TVs, Android TV boxes, I'd make money multiple ways. I would make a penny on each one from manufacturing and selling. Then I would make the money from selling the viewing habits. Then I would make the money from the ad clicking in the background. Now we just got to figure out a fourth way to like get the grand slam.
Right.
Maybe crypto jacking at the same time.
Yeah. The spying one is interesting though. So the spy on the user, you got to put some kind of malware on there which is in the cases I saw was Mirai, and it was copycat malware that was being installed, and that's where people traced it back to. So Mirai is obviously like, okay, like I got a foothold. Maybe it's cryptocurrency, maybe it's DOS or whatever. But the copycat was kind of interesting. Like, it's pretty deep inside the Android, and could, Josh, to your point, collect viewing statistics about that and sell some of that data as well.
Would it have to be there in the first place? Could the ad system that's put into place just be hijacked later on? Would that be plausible?
A lot of these apps do exactly that, Dave. Yeah. So there was also evidence in some of the research that I read that there was other backhand deals that were like, hey, include your app on here, and I'll give you access to update your app like whenever you want. And so you first get the device and like, oh, hey, like this thing looks clean. Like the app looks clean. The network, fingerprints look clean. But then like later on, one of those app updates and is doing nefarious things on your device. So there's definitely, in the human security report, they pretended to be an app developer, and the supplier of the device was like, oh yeah, we provide you access to all these over-the-air updates, they call them. Yeah, so there's a lot of, but Google could get, ahead of this. But again, like, I guess it would have to be, I guess it is official Android and it has the Play Store on there, but maybe they disabled the ability for Google to do like scanning of the apps on there. But like, I feel that should be part of your device. Like when you get an NVIDIA Shield, I feel like it should be part of it, that any app that you load or any app that's on there is getting scanned for malware. Like, should almost be like, I hate to say it, but like antivirus on your Android device that's constantly running looking for malware. Why not?
I'm not sure what the relationship is, but there's a secondary position where you can create an Android device and then you have the choice whether or not to put the Play Store on there.
Yes.
And
correct.
In that case, it's coming in as a secondary thing. It's not necessarily integrated with the existing operating system.
Right.
Therein lies all the opportunity you need for all kinds of stuff.
Yep.
Also, you don't have to put the latest version of Android with all these nice protections for side-loaded apps.
You can custom. I mean, I saw many different versions of Android on these devices. I saw some that were encrypting the file system. I saw some that weren't encrypting the file system. Some that allowed me to enable the Android debugger, and other ones that tried to stop me from doing that, or to stop me from getting root access on the Android debugger. So, there's lots of different flavors of Android, which is also how I think in the supply chain some of this stuff happened. Is this probably like, I need some version of Android. Like, oh, I'll go get it from this company because they'll give it to me for free. And guess what? It has malware in it.
I'm having Windows XP flashbacks now. Mm-hmm. All the various custom versions of insecure Windows XP that you could find back in the day.
You mean the cracked versions online had malware in it?
No.
Say it isn't so. Most of those came from Armenia.
I would hope so.
As an Armenian, I'm so proud.
Nice.
95% of all pirated software comes from Armenia, people. Thank you so much.
Well, it used to. I mean, we've been a little better about that. In any case, Android's super is interesting. I think, because I looked into it recently, I think it's super interesting to look at that ecosystem. You've got a new Pixel, the Pixel Fold. How are you liking that, dude?
I'm really, I like it a lot more than I expected. So for those of you who haven't tried a folding phone, I can't recommend it enough. If you do any sort of work with documents and you don't want to carry around your laptop all the time, I have this plus a folding keyboard that's about the same size, actually a little bit bigger, that I'll throw in my bag, and now I don't have to carry my laptop to things when I'm away from my desk.
It's interesting.
Oh, is that one of the iClever keyboards?
I think so. I can't remember the exact name, but it's along the same lines. It just folds into 3 pieces. It's got pretty nice feel to it. It's USB-C for charging. I can't ask for more.
It's you're gonna have to carry a purse to carry all that stuff around, though, dude.
No, I just have big pockets.
Yeah,
it's called cargo pants, my friend. Epic Dad Pants.
Epic Dad Pants. Yeah, with your New Balance.
Epic Dad Pants.
Yep.
But yeah, I am constantly paranoid that I'm going to crack this screen because the second a grain of sand gets in here, it's done. But so far, so good. 2 months, no whammies.
I think we talked about this a
Yeah,
couple,
what happens
couple
if you
weeks
crack
ago.
your screen, dude? You just
I have insurance.
Yes.
It's the first phone I've ever gotten in secondary
I
insurance.
can't imagine why.
I think it's $10 a month, and I'm like, yeah,
because that screen's
every
got to
penny.
be like wicked expensive.
Like, yeah, I remember a couple months that we were talking about it, and I saw someone that, like, after 3 months, they had to get their screen replaced because they were opening and closing it so much that the seam wore out. Bill, it looked like you were saying something there.
I was going to say that guy is folding his screen in half, and he's worried about cracking his screen. So that's all I was going to say.
My kids think it's really cool. They're like, what is this? This isn't not supposed to happen that way. I did actually send one back. So the first one I got, I was closing it, and my engineer brain went off, and I noticed that parts of the screen were actually touching each other. That should not have been. And I'm like, hey, Google, is this supposed to happen? And I was expecting no, it's totally within spec, but they were really good about it. They immediately sent me a new one. I sent the old one back. It was incredibly seamless.
Hey, Paul.
Yeah.
Stop it with the Bluetooth spam.
Oh, did I leave it running?
Yes.
Just turn off Bluetooth scanning.
Sorry, I left it running by accident.
I actually was detecting those from the parking lot. So through brick building and about 150 feet, and I was still getting those.
Yep, sounds about right. Yep.
It's quite good. You're going to have so much fun at Disney.
You are.
Yes, I am. The irony is that one of the T-shirts that I picked up for me to wear, I find fun T-shirts to wear at Disney, and the back of one of them says, "I'm so sorry you got stuck in line behind us."
I definitely
You should pick up a T-shirt, Larry, that says that Bluetooth spam was from me, and then walk around broadcasting and see who walks up and goes, "Seriously, is this you?"
Yeah. Yeah. Based on my experience at Disney, most people will not get it.
Oh, damn. Okay.
Oh, they won't get the joke, but they'll get the spam.
Right.
Is there a way to include a picture in those? So when it pops up, it shows an image of the devices trying to connect. Where is that image drawn from?
Well, it's a great question, Dave. So if you enable a certain feature in Android that's not enabled by default, it allows the attacker to put custom images. And
Don't see.
the one last week that I had in there was extremely off-color image.
Goatsy?
I forget what it was. I didn't even read it on the air. I left it as an exercise to the reader to put it that way.
Wow.
Yeah. But it's in last week's show notes. Yeah.
Interesting. All right.
This week's show notes, though, QNAP.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you about that one.
Yeah, so QNAP takes down the server behind widespread brute force attacks. I mean, so they took down a C2 infrastructure that was using QNAP devices that were already pwned as its C2 channel, and then urged its customers to secure their...
So I'd argue that they took down the server that was doing the attacks as opposed to necessarily the C2 stuff. It could have been one and the same.
Right.
But the one that was doing the majority of the attacks against the QNAP devices. And then this quote from the article is...
We noticed someone going around stabbing people, so we took the knife away from them.
Right.
That's really what happened.
I mean, you can go to Tractor Supply.
We didn't lock our doors.
You can go to Tractor Supply and get another knife for $3.
Exactly. I love the $3 knives from Tractor Supply. So then QNAP urged its customers to secure their devices by changing the default access port number, deactivating port forwarding on their routers, and UPnP on the NAS, using robust passwords for their accounts, implementing password policies, and deactivating the admin account targeted in attacks.
All sound advice.
But or just secure your shit. I mean,
these are all...
Like before you deliver it to the customer, secure your shit.
90% of these problems are solvable by QNAP before they ship the fucking product.
Right. Like, how about this? Ship the device and then let the user choose the password.
Or Bill's got a big or here.
Yeah, a big or do it now, right? Like even after you've shipped that shit, right? Like,
yeah. Push a firmware update.
The firmware, it's time to fix that. It's time to fix this problem. I can't believe that we're still talking about this. Like this feels like something we would have been talking about 2 years ago. I can't believe it.
Two or more. Yeah,
I don't understand. You're gonna put a NAS on your network, and you're gonna allow it to run UPnP and make changes to your firewall so that, like, while you're on the internet, you can access files on your NAS. Like,
Right.
why?
Because you let the
Why?
NAS poke through holes through your firewall automatically.
But
UPnP
why?
fixes.
Aren't your files supposed to be private? Like, why are they out there on the internet?
When it comes to large files, usability tends to be the priority. So organizations that ship large images tend to have large holes as a result of having to move big files. There's all kinds of complications that come up. And
So if you have big files, you need large holes.
exactly. So you're going to run
I
into
warned you before
complications.
this segment started, okay?
Yeah. Bill amazingly just did the.
Well, so I looked before the podcast, and right now on Shodan, there's 200,000 QNAP servers on like publicly available.
That's
right?
it?
Like,
Oh no!
But
That-
like,
that's-
why?
200
Why do these need to be on the internet? Why?
Because
Are we-
UPnP says so.
But why are you sharing files on your NAS from the internet?
Well, I need to be able to get them from wherever I am. I need to be able to get them from my phone. I need to be able to get them from my laptop.
but like,
Paul,
don't you
Paul,
have?
Paul,
But hold
porn
on.
is important.
I understand that, but don't you have Google Drive?
Have you
'Cause
ever
you can
tried
access Google Drive.
Have you ever tried to download a large file from Google Drive?
It is a bloody nightmare.
Is it? I've tried to
legitimately.
upload large files there,
there-
but it's bad.
That was my bane of the existence for the last day and a half of trying to download a 1.7 gig file from Google Drive, and it splits it into about 17 different zip files that don't fucking reconstruct.
All right, Larry. Let's all pitch in and get Larry a QNAP, and he can put it on.
And then share with us your IP address, Larry.
Yeah, you can find it on Shodan.
So I was reading an article yesterday about somebody doing a study of exposed dashboards that were accessible to the internet, and they did I would imagine a very light touch on these in order to determine who was leveraging default passwords. The rate was about 0.04%. So based on 200,000 of what you just found on Shodan, we're looking at about 8,000 machines that are leveraging like admin as their password.
Still way too many.
But like, there shouldn't be a default password.
Right.
I mean, easily guessable. I mean, the QNAP. That's not QNAP's fault if the user sets an easily guessable password, right? I mean, there should be some kind of.
No, I would argue that yes, it is QNAP's fault because on password creation for a new default
They shouldn't
password
allow
at
that.
startup, they should have some robust rules that says you need to use upper, lower, special characters and have it be 16 characters.
Clearly, this is the case where QNAP just wants to sell more devices, doesn't care about security, and it's all about usability.
Oh, totally.
It just wants to go, oh, we'll open up rules in your firewall for you. Sure.
I mean, totally, because
We'll let you set whatever password you want.
to have a developer to develop those password checking rules costs money,
Then you gotta
which takes
maintain it.
away from the
Yep.
bottom line of the actual sale of those devices, which the profit margin is probably pretty
I like how
slim.
they say implementing password policies. What is that? That's not a.
Does
that's not a-
QNAP have the ability to implement password policies?
I don't think that's a technical thing. I think they're saying like in your home, because most of these are targeted at home users.
Yeah.
You should have a password policy.
We'll write that up and we'll have all the kids sign off on it.
That's right.
And yeah,
There'll be,
All I
there'll be
know is,
regular staff meetings.
like, my brain rebooted when I heard that I had to use the QNAP cloud to configure the Q VPN for the Q firewall, and I was just like, oh my! Like, did you guys read how they name that? Like, my brain just like I quit when I was reading that. I was like, I'm not gonna do it. Like,
Listen, family, we're trying to get CSF 2.0 compliance with that standard, and that says we must enforce a password complexity policy, and there should be regular password changes, and we have to implement multi-factor authentication.
speaking of multi-factor authentication, Lee's here.
Oh,
Hey, I'm glad to be here. Wish
What's
I
up,
could have
Lee?
joined sooner, but I had some crises I had to deal with.
Oh, hopefully they all involved pants.
Oh, there we go. It sounds like you guys are having more fun talking about, I don't know, NAT issues, or we back to Cisco.
Oh, we haven't gone to Cisco yet.
We haven't.
Yet.
There's
we
just
haven't.
a minor thing there. I mean, is it newsworthy?
I think we talked about Cisco. Did we talk about Cisco last week?
I don't. I
Yeah,
wasn't
we talked
aware.
about Cisco for like every week for several weeks because they keep fucking up.
Specifically, we talked about the Cisco iOS XE bug.
Oh, you did. Okay.
Which is still, I mean, lead to your point in your story number 7, still ongoing issue where it's very similar to the QNAP thing, except we're not talking about a home user, we're talking about an enterprise. Someone said something about this on in our Slack Discord channel. I was talking about how most Cisco iOS, people administering Cisco devices don't use the web UI. Yeah, there it is. Travis from Discord says, you're right, most people in the enterprise don't use the web UI. In the later days of iOS XE, there's a feature you can host Dockerized containers.
Oof.
Cisco DNA Center Management Platform uses this HTTPS interface to manage that app environment, but it's not on by default. That was my thing last week, dude. Like, why have the web management interface on Cisco enterprise gear? I don't get it. Why include it in the first? Well, I mean, I guess they include it in the first place to be. I don't know.
Lee?
That was basically what a friend of mine was saying, is that WebEye basically blows chunks. Don't even use it.
I mean, that's been the case for Cisco for over 20 years, Lee, is what I've heard and experienced.
But when you have junior network admins, like, they don't know how to use a CLI, right? Like those kids fresh out of college.
We teach them. Oh, no, we teach them.
We do?
But for years, Larry, you could go to get training at local colleges here in Rhode Island, as an example.
Yeah. Yep.
And they would teach you how to use iOS. And it was command line. They would be in that program and come out of that program, and I would converse with them about Cisco iOS command line.
Yep.
They never once said, like, oh, yeah, like, we're learning how to use the web GUI interface, because they'd be laughed out of a job interview if you went and go,
and we would tell them that.
Right? I learned how to do Cisco stuff. I exclusively use the web UI. Yeah. No.
Well,
be like, no, you don't get the job.
So actually, one of the things I'm thinking, and my snarky comment in my number 7 is, never expose management interfaces to the internet.
Mm-hmm.
Is why the hell are people still doing that? I mean, it escalated during the pandemic, and we all got hacked and pulled them back, or not everybody, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
I'm like, didn't we learn?
Learn.
I know. That's a high bar, isn't it?
Yeah.
What percentage of those devices that have the web UI exposed to the internet on their Cisco devices also have Telnet?
Well, it's got to be a double-digit percentage, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, man, I'm going to get in such trouble now. But yeah, it's
still ongoing. I mean, there's still
yeah.
Lots of shenanigans happening.
But Lee, your comment here has some interesting here. The title of the story is "Bug Infections Mysteriously Disappear." What's that all about?
Oh, that's right. There was another aspect to this. I was so hung up on the what the hell's going on.
Why are you exposing this shit to the internet?
Yeah, I mean, that's where I was focused, right? I'm like, duh. And then the comment I actually plagiarized something Johannes said about, assume it's compromised if you haven't already fixed this. I'm like, damn, I'm grabbing that.
But this guy, what the article says,
why are they disappearing?
Well, what the article says on the why they're disappearing, and what I've also heard is that it's gotten so much press that the malicious actors are like,
we're cleaning it up.
We need to clean it up and hide our tracks better.
Yep.
Because they're figuring it out. And so hopefully now they can duck under some of these scans, but still maintain access.
Yeah. And or
wait a minute.
Another possibility is that cybersecurity law enforcement agency or Cisco or another party rebooted the devices en masse to remove the implant. What?
Which is interesting that the attackers aren't sophisticated enough to persist through a reboot yet.
Yeah.
Or
wait,
that's certainly possible.
And these agencies have access to these devices to reboot them without compromising them first? Yeah. Yup. Yup.
Oh my. That's much more exciting.
So many questions.
But I was thinking it was the hackers simply patched them so they didn't fingerprint vulnerable, but left themselves a way back in.
It's possible.
That's possible too. I mean, also they created user accounts, and when they get rebooted, the stuff they did in the web interface goes away, but now they've got a level 15
Back
user
door.
on your Cisco iOS device. So you should audit your users on these devices.
You should audit everything on these devices.
I mean, in fact, oh my God, it was like 20 years ago. 20 years ago, well, I wrote the article about configuring TACACs for your Cisco devices. That was like 20 years ago, like probably 20 years ago, like today, that I wrote that article. And then subsequently implemented that. I was in the process, when I worked at Brown, I implemented that. So I was like, we should have this. And they're like, all right, why don't you configure it?
Write
so I'm
it
like,
up.
I configured it and added a couple of like routers or switches to it that were like, weren't doing much, like I did give me access to. And I'm like, this is how it works. Created accounts for everyone, and we migrated everything to using that.
Write it up, and then it became a blog post.
I did. I think I don't know who published it back. Who was publishing articles in cybersecurity?
Frack.
Security Focus.
Yeah.
Might have been Security Focus that published it, and I was like, this is what we should be doing. So going back to today, 2023, if an attacker creates
we should be doing.
a level 15 account, like there, I believe, but now it's been 20 years, right? But I believe there's a way to say like it doesn't honor local accounts; it only honors
TACACs.
the TACACs accounts. Yeah.
Yep. And you should. I can't remember the name of the tool. Nipper.
Yep. Nipper
Should be pulling
Nipper's
down
the thing.
Nipper should be pulling down
Oh
your
my
configs
God.
and examining
Yes.
your configs and looking for changes.
Yeah,
Rancid.
Rancid. Okay.
Rancid's one of them too. Yes.
Yeah.
right.
God, I haven't thought about this stuff in a long freaking time, dude.
Well, that's because I tell people like don't go to school for Cisco networking anymore because it's all in the cloud. So it's because I mean I really think that's a thing now. Like
Go to school for SDN.
A lot of things happened 20 years ago. We essentially celebrated 20 years of Patch Tuesday a week ago or so.
Oh Jesus.
20 years.
the Slammer Worm was 2003, wasn't it?
A lot of things happened. 2003 was a big deal.
Do you know what that makes me?
Old.
Yeah.
Hey, youngster. I'm older than you.
This is truly.
SQL Slammer is a 2003 computer worm,
Wow.
Yeah.
and it doesn't. What was it? I don't know what the exact date was, but
I sat
worm
in a-
began to notice on early January 2003.
I sat in a talk at B-Sides Las Vegas. They went through the history of various different kinds of viruses, and it was really interesting to hear the various different types of shenanigans and jokes that they started playing that then morphed into much more serious things as a result. And it really is a trip down memory lane if you experienced any part of that.
Yeah. So yeah, in similar vein, I just finished up.
Do you know what that means?
We're old.
You're getting old.
Yeah.
Well, also let's not lose sight of shenanigans. Okay, I don't like us as a hacker community. We need to embrace shenanigans and keep those said shenanigans. Like when I was BLE spamming Dave, that was a great example of shenanigans.
Yeah.
Great example.
And shenanigans. Speaking of, I just finished about a week ago. I finished up Mikko Hipponen, his book. If it's smart, it's vulnerable. And I totally expected this book to be about IoT. It was not. Maybe 1% of it was about IoT.
Was it about shenanigans?
The first third of it was about his experience working for largely F-Secure as an AV company.
Right.
And it started out with shenanigans.
We need to create a hacker conference called Hacker Shenanigans. It should be all about shenanigans. Every talk has to have the word shenanigan in the title.
It's a working title. That would be.
I'm terrified. Like starting that conference would terrify me, simply because if we ran a conference called Shenanigans, do you know what shit people would get up to?
Oh, everything.
So I love the title. That's the title. The title is Shenanigans.
Shenanigans.
Right? That's the title.
Bill, you would be like if I were to give a talk about hacker shenanigans, one of the stars would be Bill Swearingen. Okay.
Let's do it during DEF CON too. Like screw DEF CON. Let's do our own shenanigans.
Well,
I'd have Mubix give the talk.
One day shenanigans.
I I like that. That's funny. I like that.
Even better, to be more shenanigan about it, is that we just need to find some space at DEF CON that we can co-opt and set up a stage and do.
We need like the Shenanigans Village at DEF CON. That's what we need.
I'm on the board of Sky Talks. You want to take Sky Talks for a little while and turn it into Shenanigan Con?
Yeah, like a track and Scott Shenanigans.
there you go.
Sky Talk Shenanigans.
I'm good with that.
Starts with an S.
See if I can make that work with the other members of the board.
I feel like it's important to our culture and our future that we maintain shenanigans.
Yeah,
I just also really like saying the word shenanigans now.
There's a lot of value
Clearly.
in pure creativity, and sometimes I feel like that's lost in this industry. We get very formulaic with compliance and standards, etc. But that pure creativity is where really interesting things come from.
Yeah, and like being an adult, like what the hell? I don't like.
Keep playing.
Yeah.
Keep playing. We'll keep
Speaking of
discovering.
speaking of shenanigans, Paul, do you have enough flair on today?
22
He
pieces.
doesn't.
Flare?
He
What
doesn't.
kind of flare?
He only has 3 pieces of flare, and they're sewn onto his shirt.
Oh man,
I got
he's
some
not going to
flair.
make it in this restaurant.
I got flare. Am I wearing my hat backwards? Does that count?
Nope.
Nope. It's not on your suspenders. It doesn't count.
Oh.
It counts as one.
Does he even know the reference?
No, I don't know what you're talking about.
That would be from Office Space.
Mm-hmm.
Tremendous
Yes.
movie.
Well, yeah, why don't I remember that line from Office Space?
Because
It's when
Jennifer
Aniston is in. He's in Shenanigans.
where
the
the
flare
restaurant.
is the pins.
Yes.
Yes.
The flares, the pins, and everything. Yeah.
Right.
you have you need to have 22 pieces of flare, and I see that you only have 19.
So
I know.
You're not
I know
only
what the
team player.
badges now for Shenanigan Con are pieces of flair.
Even
This,
better.
this is too easy. This is literally writing itself.
well,
Yep, it is.
And somebody's going to have to 3D print those pieces of flair. I wish we knew people with 3D printers. Maybe those bamboo printers.
You,
Or something.
you mean
game
there
over,
might be an
don't know
excuse for
anybody.
me to buy another one?
I'm buying 2 more, even without this right now. So we can make this happen.
Really?
I feel like anything else we talk about now for the last like 33 minutes of the show
P1S.
is like way too
Penis?
serious. Like I feel like if I were to transition right now, I would be like the boring guy keeping us on track and
Why are you buying
not
2 more?
fun.
What are you printing?
So I really need to amp up my productivity. I'm doing a lot of. I'm trying to make swag less boring and more
Okay.
interesting
Fair enough.
at conferences. So I've been creating some stuff. Gave Jack a prototype when I saw him at B-Sides Las Vegas. I hope he enjoyed it. It's very loud. Anyway, I can only print like 250 pieces of some of these things at one time.
Only.
And I really want to amp that up. And also,
All right.
there's the smaller version, the A1 or the 1A. I'm going to also grab one of those. So Bamboo makes a few different types. They make the X1C,
Yep.
X1 Carbon,
Yep.
and they also make a P1S, which has a few less bells and whistles, but it's like half the price. So I'm going to grab 2 of those and then a smaller one just for even more rapid prototyping, so I can make mistakes faster and then turn those into manufacturing.
Fail often and
Fail fast.
Fail faster.
The coolest thing I've made so far, and I can't remember the name of and I'll put it in the show notes after. There's a thing you're trying to avoid in 3D printing called stringing. You're trying to avoid that at all cost. There's an artist who has created various different types of floating hands and skulls and so on in the middle of strings, and it looks really cool. So they create a frame, they intentionally put strings holding up whatever is floating inside it, and it's beautiful. And that technique is only about a month, maybe 2 months old.
Interesting. See, I want to get a couple more to do something my wife told me I couldn't do, and that's print a full-size IG-88 Nurse Assassin droid from Star Wars. But that's
thought
neither
for
here nor there.
Yeah, do it.
That's neither here
I
nor
thought
there.
for sure that was going to be a butt plug comment for sure.
No.
I'm sure that's where you were going with that.
So,
I even got to the IG-88 part, and I really thought butt plug was going to come after that.
but full size, like
Full size IG-88 butt plug, yeah.
8 foot tall IG-88, and she's like, no, and I showed her like some other droids, no, and then I showed her Bender, and she's like, yes.
Oh,
All right. So Bender first, and then
IG-88.
IG-88. Yep.
Last time I talked to Carlos, we talked with Carlos Perez. He was 3D printing an life-size R2D2,
Yes.
like a full replica.
Yep.
Wondering how he's doing on that now, because it's been about 6 months.
That's about how long it might take.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's what he was saying.
Yep.
Man, I haven't talked to that guy in forever. How's he doing?
Oh, he's doing great, man.
Yeah, I haven't talked to him forever, but yeah, we had 2 weeks ago.
He's
we
a
had some
trusted
quotes.
sec, but like he's really into 3D printing. And like every time I talk to him 2 or 3 times, on the show, off the air, video calls, and there was multiple 3D printers going on in the background at all times when I was talking to Carlos. So
That's awesome.
So there is one security facet to this. Recently, Bamboo had a problem. There was an issue with the remote printing feature, where it's leveraged from the cloud, so you send your print job up to the cloud and back down.
Can be leveraged from the cloud, yes.
Right, can be, or you can do it locally.
Yeah.
So apparently they had an issue with their server, and it was backing up, and basically it wasn't sending the print to the printers when people asked it for it to do so.
Yeah.
So then once it got back up and running, it then sent all the print jobs to everybody's printers remotely, all at the same time. So your printer was just sitting there doing nothing. You were not monitoring it. And in some cases, it started printing something that you were not intending to at that moment in time.
Right, like you already had the bed full of something that was already printed.
You could have been very dangerous. But so far, that's not a popular vector of attack. But we should probably explore that for security purposes in order to improve that.
So we're saying that you're going to hack into people's 3D printers and have everyone print a butt plug.
That would be an interesting village challenge, to say the least, at Shenanigans.
That would be like doing the old PCL trick about printing something out on the printer across every exposed printer.
Port 9000.
9100.
Oh my God. NetSend.
Yep.
Yeah,
that too.
I had a buddy give me access to his Octoprint instance one time, and it took me about 3 minutes to map out his entire internal network, right? And he was like, oh fuck. I was like, yeah, you probably need to lock that shit down, right?
Yep. While all the while you're printing something obscene on his Octoprint
For sure.
setup. Yep.
Yeah, and he was contacting me via Signal, FYI, just
Oops.
pulling that out.
Oh, Signal says there is no... What was the rumor with Signal? That it was the...
link previews or link stuff?
Something, but they were rumored that it was the... What was the
WebP.
vulnerability? WebP that was running around was the rumor there. And then there was rumors that there was a Signal 0-day vulnerability. And I saw some of this like on social media. And then I saw a lot of our members of the community also going, yeah, don't think so. And Signal finally came out and said, yeah, not a thing. Not a thing.
I mean,
So
I honestly wouldn't have been surprised, but go ahead, Bill.
Well, I was going to say I was really happy to see this one on something we were going to talk about today, because Signal is my go-to, right? Signal is when I prefer it for all communications, just not even like secret stuff. Just hey, if you're going to talk to me, I'd prefer to talk over Signal.
Yeah. So Bill, but to that point, when we talk to like normal people, and I'm like, why are you texting me and creating group why aren't we talking about in Signal? Like when you step out of our community, it's like, oh, wait, we're not talking about Signal. Like one of my friends messages me because I'm like the only Android user in this group. And he messaged me separately because they want to add me to the group because then it like screws everything up because everyone else is an iPhone user.
Everything goes green. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And I'm like, we just don't use Signal because we don't have that. We create Signal groups all the time amongst our friends and for various purposes, sometimes for shenanigans.
Yep.
But I don't understand why Signal hasn't caught on with, I say normal people, and I don't mean to insult anyone with that, but non-tech savvy, non-cybersecurity people are still not using Signal. And I'm like, why? And I think, so here's one of my theories, Bill, and I'll turn it back to you, is that even in Android, it's a pain in the ass because you got to maintain multiple apps. Like there was the glory days of Android where Signal supported SMS, and I could use Signal for all of my text messages.
Yeah, when you
so we were all Signal,
replacement. Or
if it was just regular text message, like it would default back, and then Signal's like, no, we're not going to do that anymore. So now I actually use another app called Pulse SMS on Android, And everyone's like, well, why do you run Android? I'm like, because I like freedom. And one of the things I like about freedom is I get to choose which app defaults to my text messages. Like, I just like things like that. But on iOS, that was always the case where you had to maintain, because you can't change your default SMS app in iOS. At least you couldn't when I looked into it.
I think you can now.
Can you?
Because I still use the default text, but
I don't think so. I think it's still default. So what's interesting is I was hanging out with one of my girlfriend's friends the other day.
Wait. Hold, step back. One of your girlfriends?
No,
one of my girlfriends.
So you have multiple girlfriends?
Sure. Right.
Okay. Just checking. I just want to make sure that we're not mixing signals or anything here.
Just so everyone knows, this is his last episode. He's about to die.
No. Just so everyone knows, this is a completely normal conversation between Larry and Bill. This is table stakes right now.
Yep.
But she made a comment like, hey, I'll text you. Oh, wait, like, I know that I can't text you because you use that secret shit. And what made me realize about that is, like, they've had a conversation about this, right? That Bill only talks over Signal, and I thought that was really interesting.
Bill only does the secret shit.
Right.
So his other girlfriend can't tell that he's talking to his first girlfriend, right?
Hey, you shut your mouth, Larry. You shut your mouth.
Sorry, man. I didn't mean to out you like that.
I'm on switch the subject mode now. Well, one of the things I've been kind of thinking about over the last couple of years or so is, what's the difference between WhatsApp, and Signal? They both use the Signal protocol, right?
Yep. You can't use Signal in China.
Right. Well, but in that article, one of the things that was mentioned was that WhatsApp had a vulnerability in the way that it handled the URL preview, right?
So likely WebP stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
I find that wildly interesting. So I went out and did a little bit of research, and right now, so Zerodium is offering 500K or up to 500K for any kind of Signal. They have a 500K Signal bounty.
Interesting.
Right? I think that's wild, right? So that's starting to push. That makes me feel good about using Signal, to be honest. Like, the higher that number goes, like, the more I'm like trusting that this is a pretty secure messaging platform, right? I don't know how you guys feel about that. Like, and even though I'm not talking about anything over messaging, but like, it's still where I'm gonna. That's where I prefer all text messages to go.
But I think it's also the circle or the crowd that you're with dictates what you use to communicate. And for those of us that have kids that are using devices to communicate, you've likely observed this. So having one of my kids is a teenager, and it's all Snapchat. And I think it's Snapchat. My from what I've observed of Snapchat in various capacities and how it's used with the middle school and high schoolers in my town, is they like the fact of the perceived kind of privacy that Snapchat gives them.
This message is going to go away.
This message is going to go away.
And you're going to tell me if you took a screenshot.
Now, if they get into my circle where they're having a conversation with me about that, I'm like, you realize that that's like a farce, right? And they're like, well, what do you mean? Like, no, like, stuff disappears. I'm like, what if you send something to your friend and their friend is standing next to them and they take a picture of it with their phone? Like, that's fair game. Like, don't think anything you put on Snapchat is private, because it's just not.
Right.
It's been about a year since I've looked at Snapchat forensically, but I know for a fact, and this may have changed, so this is old information, but I do know that forensically, when you look at a phone, Snapchat content is available, right? Like, so.
Right.
Well, I mean, and quite honestly, like, I think that most of those apps you're a little surprised at the cache data that exists, but I'm still, even after what I know, I'm still a Signal user.
Yeah. We had that conversation not all that long ago in our household, that our oldest wanted some apps, and they know that they need to ask me before they install apps on their phone. You know, we've always had the open communication that their phones live downstairs, at night, and that I reserve the right to log into their phones and open their phones and examine all of their apps and all of their previous communications with those apps, and their deleted messages, and they know that. And they asked, like, Dad, I've got Instagram and I've got TikTok and I have Instant Messenger and I can, chat with other folks on Discord, and can I get Snapchat? Because all of my friends have Snapchat. And my answer was, no fucking way. No Snapchat. Regardless of the forensics part of that, because the messages go away and I can't see them. Everything else has a history that I can more easily forensicate. So, no, you can't have Snapchat. But, Dad, all my friends are doing it. I'm like, I don't fucking care. You're not getting Snapchat.
If all your friends were jumping off a bridge, would you jump too?
Yep.
Well, eventually they'd pile up. So
a different approach with my children on that, right?
You have a lot of friends.
Yeah. Well, so with my children, right? So I think what's important, like when you have children, is to explain. I don't care what you're using. I don't care if it's Signal. I don't care if it's Snapchat. I don't care what it is. If you take a picture of that or say this, whatever that is, that can persist forever, right? And as long as they understand that point, right? As long as they understand that point, that if you're gonna, even if it's between you and your partner or whatever,
yep,
it's not private. Like, and I don't care what you're on, like that. Then I don't really care if they're using Snapchat, right? But
regardless of what you take a picture of. If you take a picture of your cat and you share it with friends, it's not private. If you take a picture of your pussy,
yep,
and you share it with friends, it's not private. I don't care. I don't care what you call it. It's still a picture and it's not private.
Yeah, that's right. And I think once they understand that, and you'll know when your children are mature enough that they understand that, right?
Yep.
That's kind of the same approach I take on like drugs and alcohol and stuff. Is like, hey, like. I'm very thankful. I mean, like when I think back, and I'm sure that you guys are in the same way, my goodness, I am so thankful that I didn't have this cell phone every location I was at. And like, just imagine what we would have taken pictures of, like crimes.
Yep. But you're documenting your crimes that you're performing.
But that's what I see on Snapchat. If I'm sitting next to my son, he's on Snapchat. I'm like, so you mean tell me someone just posted a picture of them committing a crime? Like, that's vandalism. They just put it on Snapchat. I'm like, what do they think no one's watching? Like,
maybe they don't have time to enforce. I mean, we grew up, we were able to be stupid in private, which was kind of nice.
This is true.
Yeah.
This is true.
Even when you were
having a 15-year-old, I think about what I was doing when I was 15, and I was like,
oh my God. I was going to the hardware store asking for saltpeter at 15.
I know him.
And nowadays you do that, you get on a list, right?
Yeah.
What did you use saltpeter for?
I mean, you use saltpeter for explosives.
Flavor.
Yeah. I said I wanted to experiment on mice and see if I could curb their sex drive. But
yeah.
How'd it go?
Not well. They said, you're going to use this for explosives. Get out of here.
They knew you too well.
They did. And it was a hardware store I had never been in before.
Amazing. They had a picture of you already.
Yeah, they did.
It's been a very hardware.
They grabbed the one from the post office, obviously.
Yeah.
Right. Like
it's not like Larry's on any lists. Let's be clear.
Watching him.
Yeah.
Like you and Josh walking into Home Depot is like a crime waiting to happen.
I mean,
they're not allowed to go to Home Depot together, Bill.
I'm not allowed to go in Home Depot unsupervised.
For a lot of reasons.
Actually, not far off. I have to give my wife a list of what I'm getting before I go.
But like going to the grocery store, Josh, you always buy stuff off the list. If they're not there to enforce it.
It looks interesting, like if it looks interesting, it's coming home with me.
Got to have the right tools for the right job, whether that's blowing something up or cutting a piece of lumber. I mean,
right. I didn't mean I'm just I have some plumbing and some fertilizer issues I've got to resolve at home. Right.
I mean, I need some. Yeah, never mind.
Plumbing, fertilizer.
I'm not going to go get the diesel truck either. Okay, let's be clear. Stop. Anyway.
No more Ampo.
No.
No more info, did you say? Good
No.
call. No more
Good call.
info. Very fantastic.
Ampo.
Next, let's move on.
I mean, you can probably find
Stop.
what was the book? The Anarchist Cookbook,
Anarchist
right?
Cookbook, or
Yeah.
Anarchist Handbook, rather.
Handbook, yeah.
I mean, that's
That
where I
was
found out about
Anarchist
saltpeter.
Right?
Seriously.
No KNO4 coming on Amazon. You can't buy KNO3 on Amazon. Sorry.
We were talking about this in the meeting earlier this week. Raspberry Pi 5. Are we excited about this? Are we on the fence about how are we feeling?
Well, let's put it this way. I'm not excited about it. I'm anxious.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm anxious because that the Pi 5 is going to take precedence for production over the 4, and the 4 is going to eventually start reducing its production. And I say this from someone that is very dependent on their courses.
4, yeah.
And their reliance on being able to acquire the 4 between 1 and 8 gig varieties.
So what's the difference between the 5 and the 4?
The 5, what I've read is it's basically double performance.
Yep. So they've
in like a lot of different categories, it's double in performance.
Yep. So it's using a new Broadcom chipset for its CPU, and that always goes wonderfully when it's Broadcom because they don't release open source drivers and it's all binary. And that what else did they change? I mean, we encountered this specifically with the 617 wireless class for SANS, in that in the Pi 3 we had an exercise in which we were exploiting Bluetooth Classic.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to remember Bluetooth Classic. Yes, Bluetooth Low Energy. My bad. And that when we upgraded from the 3 to the 4,
yep,
the Bluetooth chipset changed, and or the drivers on Raspberry OS changed from Broadcom to effectively eliminate it was Wi-Fi. My bad. And it effectively eliminated the vulnerability from being triggered at the kernel level driver.
Mm-hmm.
So our labs wouldn't work anymore. Like, we're literally sending packets over the air, and this is Wi-Fi, to exploit Wi-Fi that would work with the drivers on the 3. But when you upgraded to the 4, because we couldn't get the 3s anymore, it broke because there was changes in the Wi-Fi chipset and the drivers. And it wasn't even that the Wi-Fi chipset had changed. It was that the drivers had changed to support the new kernel, which fixed the problems. But it was as simple as plugging in a $12 wireless adapter and changing the WLAN, and that those drivers were still vulnerable.
So it looks like they're taking into account some backwards compatibility. They've added, for like hats, they've added SSD support natively. I've got a 4 with an SSD on it via secondary port. Like, that's not a huge problem. And then I think it's a 5x increase in reads and writes, which that ain't bad.
No, that's good.
No.
I will say that, Paul, you asked excited about the 5, and we talk about 5x access and read and write and speed improvements and all that type of stuff on an inexpensive computer. I still have, or up until recently, I had Raspberry Pi Model Bs, so effectively Raspberry Pi version 2s in use, and were more than enough horsepower to do what those particular single board computers were meant to do.
Do you think they'll come out with a smaller, lighter version?
It's called the Pico?
Pi Zero?
Or just
the Zero?
Well,
like an updated version of that?
I would hope so.
Yeah.
And I can see that they're going to come out with an updated version that's going to be faster, largely because of the deprecation of the older chipsets that they've been using, and it's just the natural evolution. Like, I am so fed up with, like, why do things have to getting better? Like, what was wrong with the old stuff that just worked? Why do we need to deprecate those chipsets?
Well, when I look at the chipset, so the processor in the processor in the 5 is upgraded. The GPU is upgraded.
Yep. Better video output performance.
Both can, so there's 2 mini HDMIs on the 5 that can output 4K at 60 frames at the same time.
Yep.
The old one was 30 frames.
Like, you've almost got a gaming computer in your pocket.
Yeah, the RAM has been upgraded.
Is that a gaming computer in your pocket?
Are you just happy to see me?
It says storage now on the 5 supports an M2 NVMe SSD supported via a hat.
Yep. So that was the part of the.
But the GPIOs are still a 40 pin, and it's compatible with the old Raspberry Pi hats, which is nice.
Mm-hmm.
The USB 3.0 is at 5 gigabits a second now.
Power has an additional amp to it via the USB-C port.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Bill, you had something you were going to comment there?
Well, what I was saying is, it's just consumerism, right? Like, why do you buy a new phone every year? Like, hey, it's faster, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's why there's a 5. That's why.
Also, this one folds in half.
Right?
Obvious value.
It's new, ergo better.
Yes.
Yeah, I got to do it.
Yep.
I'm that guy. I have to get the new thing regarding technology. I've seen a lot of benefits from doing that and just getting there first, basically, with the technology. And I am seeing it with these folding devices. Also, it's fun. As we talked about Shenanigans earlier, discovery comes from new things, and this is part of it.
Yeah, when I looked over, I'm like, he doesn't have a computer with him. Is he all right? And then I looked over and I'm like, what kind of iPad is that? That's a foldable. Holy crap, I didn't know it did that. Like, yeah.
It even waves at you. So if you open it, they've got a background that moves just to basically show off to your friends.
Because that's what's important, right?
I see. Sorry, I was just looking at the Raspberry Pi 5. It says it has a dedicated UART connector. So there's a separate port on the 5 for UART. So you don't have to connect to the GPIO pins. You can connect to a separate.
So it's got its own
dedicated debug UART connector.
So it's got its own built-in UART to USB connector now?
No, it's UART. So it's that. See that?
Oh, okay.
It's got
it's got a header.
It's got a header. Yeah,
a header broken out specifically for UART.
Right. So you don't, because the problem is if you are using a hat or a screen that goes right on and covers all of your GPIO pins, you can't use a serial connection
unless you have a good hat that's expandable to multiple hats.
The hat that I had, right? I don't have it with me, but the hat expands the connectors and gives me like USB and Ethernet. But the screens, for example, when I put a screen on one, it takes everything, and I lose the ability to connect over serial, which for a lot of my applications, like I'm using it for a specific purpose,
right?
And I don't care or want networking on it. Like I don't want to put it on, especially with like a conference, I don't want to put it on the network. Like I just need console to it. So the 5 has a dedicated port for it, which is nice. Anyway, I don't know. Also, with double the speed is double the cost, right? So, like, one of the nice things about the Pi platform in general is its low cost. And now we're essentially doubling the cost. And if you don't care about doubling the performance, now it's double the cost.
What do these cost now?
$80 to get in.
Yeah.
Okay. Something like that. 80 for 8 gigs, 60 for 4.
Yeah.
I mean, $60 is still pretty reasonable for what you're getting.
Yeah,
but do you remember when these things were coming out and they were $20?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, 35. I think that's now the zeros and the picos, right, are the lower,
in the $10 or $15 range. Yep, and like the spirit is still there of the small computing device that can do amazing stuff, but the amazing stuff that I want to do isn't easily supported on something like the Pico or the RPi Zero,
right?
Because I've got to add an adapter to plug my USB-A device in. And speaking of which, holy crap! When are we going to stop with the USB-A devices and start using USB-C for everything?
I'm looking forward to that.
I was showing Larry.
Larry needs a refill on his drink.
What now?
Yeah, Larry needs a refill on his drink.
You need a drink refill. You need some more Kool-Aid.
Yes.
You're getting cranky, man. You're getting cranky, you curmudgeonly old bastard.
Yep.
But I was talking about this with Larry earlier, and I talked about it in my presentation yesterday. And
yes,
like recently, what I built based on recent projects that I've been working on is I'm like, I need a lot of different USB cables.
Yep.
And so recently, and what really sucks is when you're working on a project like I was, and I was like, I need a USB cable that goes this one to this one. And I'm like, I don't have that. I'm like, okay, I can order it from Amazon, and I can get 2 of them. for $7.99, so it's not breaking the bank.
Yep.
But like, I gotta wait at least a day or two before, so it's delaying my project a day
I need
or
a
two.
seed of micro.
Unless you order that other stuff that brings the order up to $25, and then you can get it today.
Rightly,
I need a seed of micro. I need a seed of mini. I need a seed of.
So one of the Android devices, the one that we were working on, in fact, the one that you removed the eMMC chip from, had a previous version of it, and I didn't test this, but a previous version, from what I recall and read, has the power is through the micro USB, but the bootloader is programmed that over the micro USB, as the bootloader's coming up, if there is, because the only USB port on it is the micro USB, which gives it power. But if you got a micro, I showed you this cable earlier, the micro USB that breaks out into a female micro USB so it can receive power, and a female USB-A so you can plug a storage device into it.
Yep, ADB effectively.
If on,
it's not
what's that
ADB,
called?
ADB.
No, this is U-boot. This is like a U-boot bootloader is what's looking at this. The bootloader will go, oh, if there's a USB storage device, I'm going to look in the root folder on that storage device for a bootloader.img, and if that's there, that's what I'm going to use to boot the system.
Yep.
So you could effectively use it to root the device or gain access to the device.
What's the cable that provides bidirectional data transfer and power at the same time for micro USB on Android?
OTG?
Yeah, OTG.
Yes.
That's the one. Yep.
Yeah, so this is like a OTG cable, but the power and the data are basically separate on this one. I'm like, I don't have one of those, and I ordered 2 of them for $7.99 on Amazon, and I stuck them in my kit. And so I have a dedicated binder now that has all the different USB that I could find, right? And a couple of, because sometimes you need more than one of a specific cable. And I'm just like, if you're going to do security research, you want to have this binder that has like all the different USBs. And I try and keep them organized so that they're all in one spot. I don't have to go searching for it. And I don't have to wait a day or two from Amazon if I'm working on a project. I'm like, oh, I need that to do this. Like I have that cable. So I try and like buy them before I need them because they're not expensive and keep them all in the same place. It's just a tip.
And that's one of the things that I've been doing for years in like a pack like this size type of thing.
Correct.
To try to put some cables in on my travel bag. The problem is that I was starting to find that, well, I got a cable and I get there and it doesn't work, so I need another one. So I need to have 2.
You need 2 of each.
Redundancy.
And maybe I'm working on 2 devices at the same time so I can compare stuff. So I need 2 of those.
3.
Now, which 1 is none and 2 is 1, and I really need 2, so 3 is 2, and maybe 4 is also 2.
So I had a
the easiest way
problem.
to do this, in all seriousness, the easiest way to do this, and I've done this before, is have several, and by several I mean 5, USB to C to USB-C cables that are I know work really well. The Anker cables and KER cables work really, really well. They have like a couple of different grades.
And they have warranties.
Grade.
And they have warranties.
And they have warranties, and they're really good. So that's USB-C to USB-C. Oh gosh, well I need USB-A. Buy a tip. They make tips that are USB-C to USB-A. USB-C to USB mini, USB-C to USB whatever. That would just go from USB-C to any other, and just buy like a half a dozen of each tip that you could possibly want. You've got micro, mini, A, B if you go printer work, left like if you're working with Boris. And what else? Is there anything else?
Oh, there's a lot.
Oh, there's the
USB-C.
totally.
But Josh, your point. There's USB 2.0 and USB 3.0 define different standards. Like a mini USB, so like your Boss Pirate is one of the, I believe it's called mini USB.
Micro.
No, that's not micro. It's
mini.
mini.
I'm sorry, mini. You're right.
Like the Alpha cards and
mini.
the is mini USB, but that's a 2.0 connector standard.
Yep.
That doesn't exist in 3.0. And sometimes like running Linux especially, it's very particular about
just run Windows.
3.0 versus 2.0.
Just run Windows, it'll be fine.
Okay, so you can buy USB-C 2.0 cables.
Oh, okay.
So buy
I gotcha.
3 or 4 of those, 3 or 4 of the USB 3, make one blue and one red, or if you're colorblind, stripey, I don't care. And do the same thing. Buy tips for all of them.
So I've got a lever gear cable kit that I keep in my bag, which has a bunch of different tips. It's got a relatively short USB-A to whatever you choose. There's a bunch of different configurations, but it fits on a keychain. There's a place to put SIM cards, SD cards, as well as it comes with a phone SIM card tool, so you can pop those out.
Yep.
It's pretty long and thin, fits on a keychain relatively well, and that solved most of my problems. Every now and again I have the same problem with USB 2.0, but the lever gear cable kit has really come in handy when I just don't want to carry my entire box of random cables with me, which all of us have, admit it.
Yep. Mm-hmm. And it gets worse when like you go somewhere with the family and everybody needs a cable.
Oh, God. That's the worst.
And you're the technology person responsible for the cable. Well, now my bag gets heavier and heavier, and I say, nope, you need a charger, you need a charger, and you need a charger, and you need a charger, and you need a cable. And it's Oprah. Like, everybody gets their own cables, and you bring them or you don't. And that's
because you get to, family 4 or 5 people, and everyone has a phone and headphones or earbuds of some kind, and they all take different chargers. And you just don't need the cables, but you need a power source.
Yep.
So you need the USB-C to USB-C. You need the USB-A to USB-C. You need the...
Yep. And my...
Okay. We're done. Gauss just put it on Discord. He's going to talk about his USB-A to V35 setup.
What is V35?
V.35? You got it. What is it, 1982 again?
Yes. What is that you're holding up, Lee?
Well... Not only does this cable come with a USB-A adapter, but you notice the end on the USB-C end that's right angle.
Oh, yeah. I love those.
It's like, damn, I didn't know I needed that.
Yeah. Sometimes you do need the right angle.
Now all they need to do is make
by
USB-C.
The way, this cable came with the Velcro wraps for it too. I'm like, holy crap!
I actually do have a MagSafe USB-C that I use on a daily basis. The only complaint I have is every now and again I knock it, and I use it for my microphone dongle for work. So every now and again I knock it, and I'm saying something ideally valuable, and
it's always at that time.
Yeah, all of a sudden nothing, and it has to reconnect.
Never at a good moment.
Yeah.
That was like 15 minutes of like we got to the point where guys buy quality cables, and all you really need is the tip.
I mean, it's
pretty much
just the tip.
That's just the tip. That's a pro tip.
That's what happens when it's a slow news week.
Yep.
That's what we end up doing.
So
we just talked.
By the way, on that, what I didn't, I found an article on the Raspberry Pi. I didn't realize the Raspberry Pi 4 was approximately 40 times the speed of the original Raspberry Pi.
Wow.
Crazy.
Yeah, it's constant speed.
And they're calling it a desktop class computer.
Before we wrap, and go to our pre-record, but the my story number 3, Ghost in the Wire, Sonic in the Wall, Adventures in Sonic Wall, Adventures with Sonic Wall. This is from Watchtower Labs. If you're going to read one article this week, this is my vote. This is a really it's written in a very entertaining manner. Like I don't, but it's very much nerd humor, and specifically like hacker nerd humor. So it's for folks like us. And they just have done an amazing job of writing this article. There's a lot of like tongue-in-cheek kind of humor, and really embodying the spirit of
Shenanigans.
Shenanigans. We found this device, and we want to see if it's got any vulnerabilities. How do you approach it? And there's a lot of like, one of the things the article sort of captures, but I don't think highlights enough, it's just how much work and time and patience and perseverance you need to have if you're just going to go after a thing and then figure out how that thing works and figure out if it has vulnerabilities. They ran into things like encrypted file systems, which any reverse engineer will tell you is like one of the worst things you want to encounter, right? Like it's like, I did all that work to get to the file system, but it's encrypted. Yeah. Now I've got to do, and the article highlights a really important point. Like now, rather the time we would spend finding vulnerabilities has to be spent on figuring out how to decrypt in some manner the file system.
And arguably that's a good thing.
Yeah. But also they're like, this is time we could have spent finding more vulnerabilities, so getting the vulnerabilities more quickly. It's kind of just like a stumbling block, in their analysis.
Similar type of thing in my story number 2 and 3, Paul. The IoT bug hunting part 2, the discovering of command injections and firmware binaries, and ultimately some CVEs for Zavio IP cameras.
Yeah.
Because there was a whole bunch of things that they had to do for reverse engineering. Like every time we're getting to this point, like we've got this this additional stumbling block that we have to get through. But it turns out by the time they get to the end, the reverse engineering reveals a multitude of issues that are remotely exploitable with and without credentials. So it's like, oh my God, I had to do all of this hard work up front. But then when I got there, like the cornucopia presents itself. And in particular scary parts of these particular Zavio stuff is that these devices are relatively high end in some of them that they found vulnerabilities in, and that the manufacturer went out of business.
Yeah, that's a tricky one.
And you can very infrequently find these things available. There's none on eBay currently. Ask me how I know this, but there is one retailer that they note that has some of these cameras available. And if you're into doing some casual research, they're expensive.
One thing in this the Watchtower article is there's a quote that says, "I'm looking around, throwing commands. I don't know what it does or anything."
Yeah, it's from CSI. Yeah. CSA Cyber, isn't it?
No, that's from Hackers.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Joey sitting at the table.
Yes.
Hey, talking about the Gibson.
Yep.
Yes. You hacked a bank from your house?
I'm just throwing these commands. I don't know what they do.
So it's great references in this post. I mean, just is
Shenanigans.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. So, also what is pretty awesome is what was this segment? It was wonderful spending time with all of you. I know I don't want it to end, and you probably don't either. But we gotta end and go on to the next segment. Aaron and I interviewed 2 amazing researchers that looked into some VS Code vulnerabilities and tell their story, which is awesome. So that is coming up next. So stay tuned.